you know, what is actually happening now with people speaking up and people telling their truths and the women telling their truths, that that it can have even more of a difference. And so, yeah, I think what we have to say is valuable. And fortunately, this hearing will be, you know, a month behind us from when we talk, so it won't be quite so raw. But I think today is a important reminder for every one of our speeches.
Absolutely.
For what we're doing, and it's healing for me.
I also want to give you guys, because you are on this edge and it is like unfolding as we speak, you know, this particular topic, but really all of the big topics that you guys have connected your talks to, you know, are currently unfolding, and something else could happen a month from now that ties into one of your speeches. You know, something could be up. And I just want to like make sure that what you take from that for yourself as like a human person trying to do this big thing is that you take a lot of grace for the process and just give yourself room to be wherever you're at in the process. I know that, you know, every single time I've done one of these group speaker rounds, storyteller, TED Talks, like it brings stuff up in your life. It's not as pretty as you'd like the process to be. Life goes wonky and it shows your topic in a new light. And it just like, so when I have said that to each of you individually, like, don't worry, you're on track. It's okay if it's not looking perfect. Like, that's literally true. Every single person, you know, it's just not a perfect process. And that's what the creative process is to a certain extent, and what this cutting edge stuff is to a certain extent. So lots of grace for you guys. You got a lot of room here. And all we need you to do is just keep going. Dana.
So it, since we seem to just be having a chat here, so, you know, one of my things with my dad is I never pushed back. I never said, Dad, that is so stupid to think that way, or you're wrong thinking that. You know, I never pushed back. And most of you are too young to remember the tail hook situation down in the Navy Air Base in Miramar, San Diego, California, where women, I think there was 2 women who were promoted to to pilots or something, and so of course, you know, all these sailors, Marines and sailors got together, and they're having this great big hooty party, and the women were assaulted. I don't remember a rape charge, but certainly assaulted in some manner. And of course there was well, you know, they deserved it. They were there with all these guys, and there was drinking. They shouldn't have been there. If they didn't want to get assaulted, and they, you know, so it was their fault.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad, you know, we were all sitting around the dinner table, you know, chatting away, and my dad's like, well, yeah, you know, and he's right in there with them that, yeah, they deserve exactly what they got. They deserve that. And I just had it. I just freaking had it. And I said, you are so wrong. Who the heck are you? Just because someone is a woman and there's men around, that doesn't mean that, you know, blah. And I ripped into my dad. Luckily I was an adult and I could get in the car and leave. I ripped into him. I couldn't say anything else. And I just jumped up and I stormed out of their house. And my poor boyfriend was sitting there kind of going, And my dad looked at him and he goes, what the hell's her problem? And my boyfriend says, well, I think she feels strongly about this. I'll go get her. You know, he left, you know, he came to get me and he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, I just want to run my dad over. I mean, yeah. So while I was getting ready to get on here, I'm like, I wish my dad were still alive, you know, so I could say, dude, who the freak are you? You know, I love you, but who the freak are you? Yeah,
That's a little bit of a new angle that we've heard from you, Dana. So interesting. Interesting what's coming up. Yeah. And Dana, thank you for this also segue into our topic today.
Oh, yes.
Because I do want to pull out today, we're going to do a little bit about how to tell your story. Okay? So at this part of the process, you should be getting close to having an outline of your speech. You should have maybe the big chunks in order. You should be like maybe switching things around, but just basically your goal right now is to have an outline of where you're starting and where you're finishing, okay? And I don't want you to worry about those opening and closing exact lines. We're going to work on those next couple weeks, but a basic outline is where you're at right now. And that's what we've worked on your one-on-one calls. And you should be seeing those 6 pieces come in and out. So one of those pieces is your story. And you guys have your stories in there to a lesser or greater degree. So whatever degree your story, however much of the talk it's taking up, I want to talk about how to tell it. Okay? Because there's certain things that people do with stories that makes them in one ear and out the other. And certain other things that makes the story completely unforgettable, and just it burns it into your brain, and you can see it, and the audience kind of gets to live the story because you tell it so well that they're right there. So even if your story is like a 2 or 3 sentence story, some of yours will be, we want those 2 or 3 sentences to just really get to the heart of what you're trying to say and paint the picture in a great way. Okay, so should be bringing to mind right now, what story am I going to tell? And if you haven't landed on one yet, that's okay. Just pick one that's like in the running to work with today. Okay, one of the ones you think you'll probably tell, and we're going to apply these principles to it. So does everyone have a piece of their story that they are ready to work with today? Yes? Okay, good. Okay, cool. So my PowerPoint was being super crazy slow today, so this is old-fashioned PowerPoint here today. But there's 3 things that I want you guys to apply with your story for this purpose. And the first one is, I want you to pick a moment where you can be the learner, not the teacher. This is huge. We want to see you learn something, you have a realization, or you just plain out get told something by a mentor or a outside force. And this goes for any story, but you might hear it said, you don't want to be the hero of your own story. You're the protagonist, you're the main character, but like, Star Wars isn't about Obi-Wan Kenobi, who already knows everything. It's about Luke Skywalker, who's learning everything for the first time. So you want to pick a way that we can see you learning. It's the super non-preachy way to teach. Because if we see you learning, we're going, oh, well, if she's up there on that stage, she's learning something, I can sit back here in my chair and also learn. And it's just like a modeling thing that happens on stage. Whereas if you get up there and start saying, well, this is a story about a time where I did everything right, it's can come across as preachy. So pick a story where you were the learner. And even if it was a realization that you had, like, whoa, I suddenly put it together, I need to do it this way. Add a little of the shock and surprise that was probably present at the time. So you can be the one that wakes up and has the aha, and you can model the aha that you want your audience to have. Okay? Be the learner, not the teacher. And the other thing is, that I hope will go along with that is you want to choose one moment. Is that backwards for you guys?
No.
Okay, good, great. I think it's backwards for me. Choose one moment that represents the bigger picture. Even if you learned something over 10 years or 3 years, choose one moment that represents it all. Okay? And a good way to get yourself honed in on this, and then we'll go to Dana, is can you use the phrase, so there I was. Da, 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 da. Pick like a pivotal turning point moment that really brings it out. I'll give you an example of this in a second. But Dana, did you have a question about that?
Yeah, so could my moment be when I was learning?
Yes, it needs to be when you were learning. Yep.
Oh, it needs to be. Okay, good.
Yep. And I'm just bringing this out as another point to say, don't say over the next 10 years I learned to do this or this. I mean, sometimes it's okay, but you know, my story that emphasizes this is I was working with a speaker one day, and she had this like 10, I don't know, 5 years or 10-year period, long period of being depressed. See, I don't even remember. It's like too long for me to remember, right? And she was like, it was just so bad. It just sucked. I was depressed. I couldn't get off the couch. I was just like, for 5 years, it was horrible, bad times. And I was like, okay, I'm kind of feeling it. Yeah, I get it. But I didn't have anything to picture. So I was like, was there like a worse day? And she goes, okay, I'll just tell you. My worst day was when I looked down at my pajama bottoms and I saw a Cheeto stain on my pants. And I realized this is Thursday. That's the same Cheeto stain on the same pants that I saw on Monday. That's how bad it was. And those details have burned themselves into my brain. And I was like, okay, I get it. You were not getting off the couch. You were not showering. You were not going out and living your life for 5 years. That's how bad it got. And she didn't even fill in like all the details. You know, she didn't tell me she had Snoopy pajama bottoms. She didn't tell me she was on a red couch. You know, we got to those things a little later, and I want to get to those things too. But she picked that moment and took me there. And then when she said it was that bad for 5 years, now I get it. So you want to pick a moment that represents the longer time that it took. That's how you pack 10 years into 5 minutes. Tell moments. That's how a movie packs a lifetime into an hour and a half. They tell the moments that represent the greater whole, and the audience brain knits together the big patchwork quilt so they feel like they lived, you know, a year of life with you. But really, they were only with you for an hour and a half. Very sneaky. Yeah, so see if there's a moment where you can say, so there I was. Okay, that's number 2. The third thing I want you to definitely incorporate are some of those visual details so that you're painting the picture. You can have a few what you would call internal or abstract thoughts in there. That's great. Feelings, emotions are great. But make sure they're anchored with some concrete visual sensory details. 100 extra points if you get a smell in there. Okay?
You froze.
What's that?
Oh, Amanda.
What's that, Dana?
You froze.
Oh, I froze? Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I was saying sounds, sights, tastes, extra credit for smells. Like what was happening in that moment where you can really take us there and we can start to see the orange Cheeto stain on the blue Snoopy pajamas. Names are also really important, shockingly important. If I say, my daughter is good, my daughter and I went to the store. But somehow if I say, my little daughter, Evie, with glasses and short, bushy brown hair, walked into the store one day, just paints a different picture. And that name, even though no, not everyone has the same Evie in their mind, but somehow just saying their name, everyone's name just brings up a little bit more of their personality. So get a name in there if you have another character. Even sometimes their last names help a lot. So like if I say, my friend walked in the door and I was just shocked. That's getting there. But if I say my friend walked in the door, she had long blonde hair and red cowboy boots on. And I was shocked at the way she walked over with such confidence. Just gives you a little bit more to picture. Would you say? And we're not doing a storytelling thing. So like I do a whole class on this, right? But even you guys with your story being 2 sentences to 2 minutes, you got to put some of these details in there to really hook people in and let them see what you saw when you had your revelation. I can see the wheels turning. That's good. Okay, so I'm going to give you about 10 minutes to write on these 3 pieces. Be the learner, choose a moment, and paint us a picture. And see if you can write out some of your story. And if you want to write this about 2 different possibilities, that's okay too. Or if you just want to focus on one and carry it through, that would be okay. That would be a good use of time as well. So let's do this for about 10 minutes. And then we'll probably do some pairs, some partner work again today. I think that worked well. Any questions before I let you go off and write? Okay, use the chat if questions come up, and I'll set the timer for, hey, we have extra time, 12 minutes. So another couple minutes, see if you can paint us a picture. Okay. Okay, so just wrapping that up however far you got. Good job. If you have some, if you feel like, oh man, the story feels too big or too long, or like a 5-minute story or something, that's actually perfect problem for what we'll do next. Because what I'd like to do next is go ahead and pair you up and then have your partner help you determine what parts of the story are most memorable and impactful. Okay, so we're really looking for which words at this point, Which words, when I say this, especially if you have a short story, you need every word to be powerful. So when I say this, does that hit you? Or are you like, okay, I can almost get there, but I'm not seeing it, or I'm not feeling it, or that doesn't, like, punch me in the face, like we've been saying. It's like good, but it's not whoa. So help your partner get to a whoa moment. Some whoa descriptions, like, okay, that I can see, red cowboy boots, I can see that. Whereas I can't say she came in, I can't quite see, she came in a, business suit, or she came in dressed casual, right? Like maybe that's not quite enough. Can't quite picture that. But she came in a pinstripe blue business suit. Now I see it. Does that make sense? Help them get to a picture they can see. Okay. So let's see. I'm going to put Morgan and Heather together because I know you guys have a little bit of crossover. And then let's do Linda and Mary and Dana and I. And we'll see if we can get there. Dana, was that a question? No, just a little flare. Okay, great. So we'll just take about, I don't know, 7 or 8 minutes each. And yeah, share your story ideas with your partner. Maybe you want to read through it all the way through, or maybe you want to throw out a list of things and have them say, ooh, boom, 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 this, and this, and then try to read through it and tell the story. Either of those will work. All right, Heather and Morgan. Linda and Mary's got good vibes today. There you go. And I'll call you back in about 18 minutes or so. Okay. And Linda, are you joining your breakout room? Oh.
Yeah.
There we go. Hi.
Hey, so really quick, where's the other Mary? Is she okay?
Yes, she is. Sorry, I should have said that. Yeah, she's just had to babysit extra for her little granddaughter.
No, that's okay. As long as she's okay, I don't, So it's all good. So a lot of this, is a lot from the storytelling thing.
Right.
So some of this you're going to be going, I've heard this, but they haven't.
Right.
And I think, so I wrote down things that I think will already.
I know it's a little abrupt when you get sucked out of your room. Sorry, he tries to warn you, and then and now you're gone.
It warns us. It warns us.
Yeah, it warns you. It gives you countdown, but
yeah, intense countdown though. Say everything faster.
For a minute, right? You're like,
I wish there was like a pause. Like, I don't want to. Don't make me. But there's no option.
No option for that. And if there was, I wouldn't let you have it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't turn it on. No, I hope that went well. Our group went well. We only had Dana to get through those, so I hope you guys got both 2 done. Yes, got a little progress. Good. Got some feedback on your story. Okay, cool. Well, you may have guessed, I would like for you to share a part of that story. It doesn't have to be perfect or the whole thing or anything, but maybe it will be. But I'd love for you to share a part of your story with the group here now. So see if anybody's ready to do that. See if it's in.
I can go.
Great, Heather, go for it.
So we were talking about, I really want to tell the story about some kids who were super struggling in our program, and we ended up having to ask them to leave because of behaviors. And so we talked about, really, we think that people don't really know that little kids can get kicked out of preschool, and they can't possibly imagine what little kids could do in order for that to happen. So to talk about the kicking and hitting and throwing things at other children, that that is a problem. And then we were talking about whether or not to use their names, and because I have to change their names, so
Yeah.
it won't be real names.
No.
So but to talk about those things and yeah, so specifically about those things. I don't like pointing out bad behaviors of children, so it's really hard.
Yeah.
for me
What
to talk about that.
what purpose is this serving in your talk? Just briefly tell us.
Yeah, so I told you guys the story last time about the food fight classroom, that the
Right.
kids participate in the food fighting. So the goal is to talk about what behaviors we were seeing in our school. And our school has therapy offices above it. I train the teachers a lot on these specific skills and how to help. I have directors doing one-on-one work with kids to do brain activities to get them back in the classroom. So kind of talk about having all those things set up, and yet it wasn't working because these kids, even after doing all the things, still ended up kicking, hitting, fighting children when they're in their classroom.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I went to the research to do that, read this book, listen to this food fight story, and also tell the food fight story, and then be like, then I figured it out, because I did. Well, hopefully I figured it out. I don't know. I'm just so that's the kind of progression.
Okay. And so when you're saying they're kicking, they're hitting, they're throwing things, I mean, can we get more specific? Like he picked up a red spiky
I guess
metal.
I could tell the story. Yeah, that's actually a good point. So there was a kid who would do great out with us. He was a smiley, happy kid. He would, sing songs if he was with the one-on-one teacher and draw pictures. He had a little treasure box of fun stones, and he would talk about it and, sit in our laps and help us with any job that we would want him to do. And if we worked in getting back to class, the last day, the day he was asked to leave, he went into the sandbox and he was just angry that there was any other kids around, picked up a shovel and threw it directly at a teacher's head. She was luckily not hurt, but that was his goal. His goal was to hurt someone to have to get back out of class. And, he had to be asked to leave because he was going to escalate it until he hurt someone if he needed to be in a classroom. He loved his teachers. He was super connected with them. He would do great with the activities we would do to get him back in there.
Yeah.
But his goal was to hurt someone. And,
Okay. So Heather, I'm seeing like you are seeing this scene, and I actually, I know what playground you're even picturing because I know the playground. I grew up there too. But like, can you give everyone else a little more like, how tall is this kid? Does he have curly brown hair? His age? We need to see that shovel in his hand. Was it like a tiny toy little plastic shovel? Was it really pointy? Like, give us a little more in the moment. He picks up the shovel with a handful of sand, this pointy blue shovel, and threw it. And maybe he's like 4 or 5. Throwing a shovel is different than a 2-year-old. So, how close was he to the teacher? Like, give us some of those specifics in there so we can really feel the danger in this situation.
Okay. You want me to tell them now?
Let's see how much time you have.
Oh, I don't know. Okay.
I just was timing. Yeah.
I mean, this boy is super good to describe. I have no more time. He's an adorable, blue-eyed, blonde-haired, like epitome of adorable child.
Yeah.
For sure.
Perfect.
So that's fun to describe for sure.
Yes.
And hugs every day when you come in, and
yes, and a perfect, beautiful, perfect kid name too would be good to help describe him. Right? Pick a name that goes with that. Caden, or I don't know. There's like names.
I'm trying to think of other kids who have never like struggled in our program, so nobody would assume it was them.
That would be also good.
Right. Oh, she's actually talking about my kid was not as helpful. So I'll have to think of it.
Yeah. So yeah, but good work. Really good work. Getting down to that moment. That's really tough. I know you have so many moments to choose from too. So okay, cool. Who's next? Let's see if we can hook in. Is that Morgan? I think you're muted here. Let me unmute you. There you go.
So, Heather, what do I talk about?
I maybe gave her bad advice because I really want her to tell 3 little stories as the story instead of one moment. So Amanda might disagree with me.
How dare you?
I know I'm a jerk, but she's my sister, so I get to disagree. But I would tell the 3 little stories, and then the reason there wasn't one big story.
Okay. So I have like the moment when I knew like I was being raped, like the first time I ever knew it was like for sure rape was when I sat up and I was like, no, like, do you hear me? I'm saying no. No means no. And he like put his hand up to me and was like, shh, I know what your no means. And then that continued to be like that for 6 years.
Wow.
And then I have, I'm forgetting I also have like the very first time when I didn't know and I just gave up, like give up. I have no option in this situation other than to text him back because I didn't realize I could even tell anyone. And then I have in empowerment class, shoot, Heather, I'm forgetting. Okay, in the empowerment class, my empowerment teacher told us we're going to make a boundary web. She told us what boundaries were. She explained them, and she said, put yourself in the middle. However far you put everyone else around you in your life is how like high your boundaries are with them. Make sure you put strangers in there so it's relative. And then I realized like, oh my gosh, he probably needs to be further than strangers because I know every time I see him, he's going to hurt me. And then there was also like just the fact that people think it needs to get so much worse, like it needs to get to a point being bad but it's never bad enough. Like choking, getting someone pregnant, that all happened. But I wasn't able to leave until it got good enough, until I was like empowered enough to know I have a right to be safe. And yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. I think we have time for a little bit of feedback about like which one hits us.
Okay.
So I think that bad enough versus good enough issue for me is huge. It's not a story. You don't have to think of it as a story. It's just an amazing phrase.
Okay.
So I would keep that. And then I like the boundary class exercise. I think it's powerful. I'm not sure you're going to have time for it in 8 minutes. It's not as important to me as the first one you told, the moment when you knew it was rape. I feel like that is so not talked about. And I even wrote down a phrase like what it looked like in the moment for me was, because holy God, how valuable is that information? Yeah. Exactly what was said in the moment when you knew this was crossing the line.
Okay.
So I'm seeing some nods. I guess I'd like to hear from anyone who, wants to add on to what I have said already.
So one of the things we talked about is her explaining this as the lines that were crossed. So, she set up boundaries that were, no means no, and he crossed that one. Where if he has a child with another person, then that's it, and he crossed that one. If he is physically hurting me, and then he choked her, and he crossed that one. And so it didn't matter how deep down the bad rabbit hole, she got. So I think describing that moment, and we talked a little bit about that, but that moment of that first one, but really using those stories to paint a bigger picture of it could get as bad as it can get. And unless I had tools, I was never going to get out. So that's kind of how we talked about it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Dana.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate because I get why you didn't leave. Because you're saying you were there 6 years. Is that right, Morgan?
Yeah.
Okay, so devil's advocate. Why were you there 6 years? Why did you wait 6 years to leave? I mean, you could have left. You know, this guy was being mean to you. He was hurting you. Why didn't you just pack up your stuff and leave?
As she said, it didn't get good enough, right? That explains it, that phrase.
But I want to hear, I think people in the audience, people hearing this on YouTube, you know, after you're on TEDx and it's going to go around the world, and everybody watching you on YouTube is going to go, why didn't she leave?
Mm-hmm.
I know what you mean. I'm just saying, can we make the reason why you didn't leave stronger? Why do women stay? Because they don't know they have options.
And I think, Dana, like, just to devil's advocate here, I think she's going to say that in the rest of her talk.
Okay.
I'm not sure that has to come across just in the story.
Okay.
Because the story is you not leaving, but the moral, or like the end of the story, is how you were able to leave, and that's her message for everybody, is, you know, empowerment. But Morgan, I should let you respond to that too.
Yeah, I mean, I could honestly like do a whole speech on why women don't leave.
Yeah.
I have this like analogy metaphor that I thought of when I was making brownies, where like you would never eat a raw egg, right? Like everyone says, oh my God, ew. But then when you mix it in with the brownie batter, it's like you don't even see that egg anymore. And people like eat the brownie batter, right? But you're
That
still
is
eating
so
the raw
good.
egg.
That's such a good analogy.
Yeah. And I really that's like one of the reasons why I wanted to do this talk, was to share that. But it's like more than just the raw egg. Like it's so much more to it.
Yeah.
No, and I get it.
Right? Yeah,
Right.
I understand it, and I understand, Dana.
Yeah, and if I didn't think you were making that point eventually, then, you know, we'd make sure, but I think it's in there. Okay. Hopefully that helped, Morgan, and thank you for sharing. Who's next? Who can share part of their story?
You want me to do it? I don't care.
Let's do it, Dana.
Okay. So there's going to be stuff about my racist father in the sort of beginning, la la la. So, blah blah blah. Sometimes it was hard to tell which was worse: blacks, Hispanics, Middle Eastern. Maybe today it was Japanese, but blacks were always near the top. I grew up in the suburbs of Los Angeles. My high school was monotone, beige. We had one black kid, Elliot Bland. Both of his parents were professionals, and they lived just a few blocks past our house. We walked home together from school a lot. It was in September, and it was hot. We took refuge in the shade of our front porch. We sat on the cold cement, and the honeysuckle whiffed past us as we finished our talks. Elliot went on his way, and I went inside. Dad was waiting for me at the front door. I don't like you sitting out there with that black boy, advertising to the neighborhood. It was then when I realized that even though my dad was a really good dad, I just couldn't buy in to his beliefs. Just because you weren't white didn't mean you were bad. I was pretty snarky at the time, and of course my response was, okay, Pops, next time I'll invite him in. Oh, I never invited him in. So I need to work on some things, but that's...
Yeah, and you want to say the part about the generational?
Yep.
In there.
I had some arrows going this way and I missed that, but yes.
It's okay.
Yeah, where I said I realized I couldn't go along with his belief, and that that we need to combat generational racism. And I think when I say, okay, Pops, next time I'll invite him in, and I never did invite him in, I think then is when I want to say it's time to combat generational racism. This was my time to say I've had it.
Yeah.
And so I'm not carrying it on.
I think
kind of
say, even though I never actually invited him in, that was the moment where the generational racism ended.
Yeah.
Something. We were talking about the generational racism cannot hold up to one actual like I don't know,
one-on-one encounter
experience. Yeah, love. Positive experience of your own.
Yeah.
Great. Any feedback for Dana's? Can you feel and see her front porch and kind of be with her in that moment, standing up to her dad? Do we need a little bit of a description about her dad so we can picture him?
Oh, maybe. I thought that you did a good job of describing, some of the scene of what the school was like walking home, and the neighborhood, the racial makeup of the neighborhood, which was similar to my experience. I remember one Asian, one Black, one Hispanic. And everybody else was white. So, that's pretty descriptive about that as well, and might be common in some of that. But yeah, I thought that you did a lot of really nice descriptors there.
And, I can always do the little, I don't like you, which is hard in this setting. I don't like you sitting out there with that black boy advertising to the neighborhood. And, even though my dad wasn't tall, nobody else knows that, I could always look up at him.
Right.
And he could look down at me,
But maybe a description of him would be nice. Even though he wasn't that tall, he was broad, or he was not broad, or whatever. Morgan?
So I think that a description of your dad is super important, because as I'm as if I didn't know you already, all I can picture right now, all I see is you saying this stuff. So if I could picture your dad in my mind and him, so I can get a picture, and then you're saying he's saying these things, I feel it helps me separate them better. Because if I can only picture you, it's coming out of your mouth. And just helps, I think.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Okay. So
awesome.
So I would add a description of my dad at this point when I walk in the door.
No, probably not.
I think the description of dad needs to be a little earlier.
Yeah. We're talking about, even when you say you're talking about how he describes other people, and maybe it's Japanese today, that's more where the description could go, if not before that in the talk, but at least that by then.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
The other thing about a description that when I think of my mom and describing her, my mom was not a tall person. My mom, about 5'2", 5'3", and I think she shrunk now, but she wasn't tall. But my mom was mean and scary, and she could be very powerful in the way that she screamed and the way that she spoke, even if that was a loud commanding voice, or what was it that about his demeanor, maybe the way that he carried his body, even if he wasn't tall, or the way that he spoke that made it sound like really shaming you, the way, the words that describe him being so demeaning and so and how dare you spend that time with that boy on the corner? How can you do that? Did his face scrunch up? Did his eyes squint? Did he what was it about his body language and his tone and the way he did that made it even more impactful and memorable to you with the words that he was saying?
Agreed.
Okay, I'll have to come up with something.
Cool. Good job.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next person, and we may not get to the final person. So who wants a little feedback? Mary or Linda?
I'll go real quick, although I think Mary's is really good.
Hmm.
But I could use a little more feedback because I'm still struggling with a little bit of the detail, and mine's relatively short.
Great.
So, we learn to keep big and small secrets as children. I learned to keep secrets at a young age. When I was 6 years old, I have a vivid memory of my mom curled in a fetal position between the toilet and the wall. She was childlike, unresponsive, and seemed unaware of our presence. My dad and I and my sister and 2 brothers stood at the edge of the open bathroom door. Dad turned to us kids and said sternly, "Your mom is sick," and sternly said, "This is a secret. Don't tell anyone that your mom is sick." This secret was extended to the physical and mental abuse my father and us kids endured, even as mom was eventually diagnosed with bipolar disorder.
Yeah. Cool. Vivid moment. We can see someone curled up, right, by the toilet. What
Correct.
other details do we need to have to actually see it and be there with her?
How old were you?
I was 6.
Okay.
And was your dad, I mean, at 6, most dads are a big presence, right?
My dad was 5'8", but my dad was tall and skinny to me,
Mhm.
and my mom was short and fat
Hmm.
to me.
So that, yeah, like I would like to know maybe what she was wearing and, in her red house dress, or maybe a
Yeah,
little bit
that
of,
part I don't remember. I could make something up.
could fill in a couple details just to give us like, kind of like the red cowboy boots theory, just like one thing that helps us see a color or see a visual there. And I'm picturing her head away from us.
Correct.
Okay. So, I mean, I don't want to over describe that and make it a,
Yeah, I mean, I think she may have felt invisible, or whatever. Like, I don't know that she was aware of what was happening around her at that point. My
Yeah.
mom had a complete mental breakdown.
okay.
And was completely, this was a mental breakdown. My mom had 2 or 3 of them where she was hospitalized.
But we find
And
all
this
that
was
out
the
later.
first one.
But in the moment, all you see is your mom has gone down. Was it a small bathroom?
Yeah. If you imagine that space between a toilet and the wall is maybe a foot,
Mm-hmm.
it's a very small space. And she was curled up in that space, like.
And that means you guys were like huddled in the doorway, or crunched or crowded in the doorway.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your dad is like in the bathroom and he turns to you and says, just
Yeah.
a few more descriptors in the action of your scene, I think, would take it up a notch.
Yeah, so I did say dad turned to us kids, but I like that huddled.
Yeah. Turn to us kids who were huddled in the doorway, unsure what to make of this scene. And so he says, "Never speak of this to anyone." Or "This is our secret." Whatever he
Yeah.
said there. Yeah. Very good, Linda. Okay, can we scoot over to Mary real quick? And if you guys need to dart away, I totally get that. Oh,
I got to get out of here because I literally need to fly this afternoon. So,
well, fun.
bye, kids.
Bye. Have a good trip.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dana. Okay, Mary. What do you got for us?
Go.
Unmute.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. I had to switch to my phone because it seems like after my computer for an hour, it just wigs out on me. So
Weird.
anyway, I don't know. Okay, so my story is about a moment with my mom. So when I was 18, my mom was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and 4 years treating her.
Oh, is she freezing for you guys?
Yeah.
Dang it. Darn it, Mary. Oh, you froze
Is
for a
it not
second.
working?
You're back now. And now you're gone. Darn it. Mary, if you can hear me, try turning off the video. Maybe I can stop the video. At least we can hear your audio.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this might work. We'll see.
Okay. Okay.
It's so strange. I don't know why I'm having so many audio and computer issues, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Roll
All right,
with
so
it.
I'll start over again.
Yep.
Okay, so when I was 18, my mother, Barbara, was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. She fought long and hard for 4 years, and I watched my mother go from a vibrant, healthy woman, active, loving life, to a very sick cancer patient. And I was with her the whole entire time. I held her hand. I stood by her through all the treatments, through thick and thin. She got to the point that her body could no longer tolerate the treatments, and she ended up on feeding tubes, colostomy bags, just to keep her life going. And eventually she got to a point that life just wasn't worth living this way, and she made the decision to pull the tubes. We all knew that her moments in this world were limited, but it was time. 2 days before she passed, she took me by the hand. We walked upstairs to my brother's old bedroom where she kept most of her clothes. And we went to choose a funeral dress that she would wear the day after she passed. As we crossed the threshold, went to the closet, we picked out her favorite dress. It was a blue dress with purple and pink flowers. We both knew that she would look beautiful that day. She looked at me, and we sat on the bed, and tears began to well in her eyes. And she said, "Mary, this isn't the way to cure cancer. There has to be another way, a way that the body can heal itself." I looked at her, and we both wanted so much for her to have the other way, for her to find the other way, but we knew it just simply wasn't going to be. In the silence, as we were holding each other, I realized this message wasn't meant for her. This message was meant for me. It was a gift that she gave me that I didn't fully understand in the moment, but I knew one day it would be the words I needed to hear. And then that's as far as I got with the story.
Wow, Mary, I'm really right there with you. Yeah. I think, this is a example of just giving her a name. Barbara kind of brought her to life a little bit for us.
Yeah.
You could describe her just a bit more if
Okay.
you wanted to. I'm going to try to turn on your video here. Really beautiful job. Oh, it looks like you have to start your video. Anything else we need to hear to really bring this moment home? Then I have one more piece of feedback. You guys are feeling it. Feeling it. Yeah, it's good, Mary. So I think if you end up having to cut some of this because it's a little long, yeah, you could skip right to there I was with my mom picking out the dress she would wear at her funeral. That's, just a little less buildup, and we get it all right there. We get the feeling of the moment. We're like, whoa, okay. So that's where I would start.
Yeah, and that's awesome because this isn't the only story. I mean, the other part is tying it into my story and when I got cancer, and
Right.
My mother's words coming back to me in that moment, because I have to fit that in there too. So
Right.
I like that, I'm going to have to go back on this video and see what you just said. But I mean, that brings it to the point. We know she's going to die, and this is it. And we're choosing her funeral dress.
Yep. I mean, there is some important stuff in your setup of the 4-year battle, right? That's important. But as far as when the story really kicks in, like, just take us right to that moment on the bed.
Okay.
You know.
Awesome.
Awesome
I
work,
thought
everyone.
maybe just a little more description on the bed. A little more description on the bed. I didn't know, like, maybe that would be helpful. And then also in my feedback to her, I talked to her about gifts, like using that word gift. Because that, I think that she's going to find, Mary, you'll find different places. We talked about it to really punctuate the word gifts
Yes.
as you go through the story. So I think, using that word somewhere at the end of that story really is great. And
Agreed. Yep, can help you sum up some of that wrap up. You want a more description like of the bed, Linda? Or just
I was thinking about that, or the room, or I don't know. Like, I remember when I was writing mine and you were saying what bed, and in my case it was a hospital bed. So I had to go in a little more detail of a hospital bed.
Right.
So I guess I was asking for, like, was this in a bedroom in a house, or in a hospice care facility, or because it's different, like that.
And
location.
I'm assuming it was her bed because you're picking the dress out of her closet. Is that?
Yeah, technically it was my brother's bedroom because she had her clothes in that bedroom, and I think she probably slept in that bedroom sometimes just because she was sick.
Yeah.
But it was in her personal home.
Yeah, like, was it a twin size bed? Were you like, or was it a big bed? I don't know. I was just kind of curious about the room and the space and sitting with her. That was all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm picturing a dark room. You could just talk about the light a little bit. Just give us maybe what Linda's asking for is like a little more sense of the space. Maybe it had a smell or a light, or it was upstairs, which I think you mentioned. So, yeah, sometimes we just need that extra one little detail to get us to the space. So, okay, great work, everybody. I know people had to jump off, but your homework this week is to get your speech in paragraph form in the order that it's going to be in. Okay, so 2 to 3 pages is what we're shooting for at this point. Definitely no longer than 3 pages. Yeah. So get all your thoughts down into paragraphs, and you might still move those paragraphs around a little bit, but get them.
Typed pages? Not my handwritten.
Typed pages.
Okay.
Typed pages. Okay. All right, ladies. Have a great week. Keep in the flow. Like we said at the beginning, we don't need you to do this perfectly. We just need you to keep going and do it. All right. Okay. Talk to you soon. Bye.